The wire had cut so deep into Nora Whitlock's wrists that she couldn't feel her hands anymore. 3 newborn daughters lay dying in the snow beside her, their cries growing weaker with each passing minute. Her husband had tied her to that fence post as punishment for failing to give him sons, then walked away. She was 23 years old, and she was certain this was how her story would end: frozen, broken, forgotten. Until she heard the horse. Until she heard his voice, God Almighty. Before we continue, if you're drawn to stories of survival redemption and the quiet strength that changes everything, please subscribe to this channel. Stay with us until the very end, and comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far Nora's story travels. Now let's begin. Boaz Kittredge had been following mare tracks for 3 hours when he heard the first cry. "Easy, girl." He squinted through the whiteout, one hand tight on the reins. "Just a little further." The wind threw his words back in his face. His beard crackled with ice when he turned his head. Somewhere ahead, that damn mare was probably already dead frozen mid-stride like he'd found cattle before. Smart thing would be turning back. Then he heard it again. Thinner this time. Weaker. Not one cry. 3. What in hell? Boaz yanked the reins hard. The fence line came at him fast through the snow posts appearing and disappearing like ghosts. He almost rode past her. Almost missed the shape slumped against the wire, the dark hair frozen in clumps, the nightgown plastered to skin. Jesus Christ. He hit the ground running. Up close it got worse. Her wrists were bound with barbed wire, the kind meant for bulls, and it had bitten clean through to bone. Blood frozen black down her arms, face blue-white, lips the color of slate, and at her feet, no, 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 no. 3 infants, laid out in the snow like someone had arranged them for a photograph, wrapped in dish towels, already going still. Boaz dropped to his knees, his hands shaking so bad he nearly dropped the knife. "Stay with me. You hear me? Stay with me." The woman's eyes cracked open. Green. Empty. Already halfway gone. "Please." Her voice came out broken, barely there. "Not me. Them. Just them. Please." "Shut up." Boaz sawed through the first strand of wire. It snapped with a sound like a gunshot. "You're all coming. You don't understand. I said shut up." Second strand. Third. The wire pulled free, and she collapsed forward into his arms. He caught her barely. She weighed nothing. Less than nothing. "My babies. I've got them." Boaz lowered her into the snow, then reached for the infants. They weren't moving anymore, weren't crying. He grabbed the first one, a girl tiny as a kitten, and pressed 2 fingers to her throat. Pulse. Faint. Still there. Thank God. He tore open his coat, ripped his shirt half off. Thank God. Thank God. What are you doing? Saving your daughters. He grabbed the second baby. Third. Pressed all 3 against his bare chest, felt their frozen skin burn like ice against his. Now hold on to me. I can't. You can. Boaz wrapped one arm around her waist, hauled her up. She folded like paper, her legs buckling. Come with me. Right now. Move. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing and grab the saddle horn. She did. Barely. Her fingers slipped twice before they found purchase. Boaz shoved her up onto the horse, then swung up behind her, one arm locked around her ribs, the other pressed tight over the babies tucked inside his coat. Hold on. I tried to give him sons. I don't give a damn what you tried. Boaz kicked the horse hard. Shut your mouth and stay conscious. They plunged into the blizzard. The woman started shaking so bad he could feel her teeth rattling. He said I was cursed. He said God was punishing him. He said, Who did this to you? My husband. Your husband tied you to a fence in a blizzard. I gave him 3 daughters. Her words came faster now, tumbling over each other. I prayed for sons. I did everything right. I went to church. I obeyed. I never complained. But they're all girls. All 3. And he said I shamed him. He said I wasn't a real woman. He said, Where is he now? He left. He said. She choked on something between a laugh and a sob. He said if God wanted me alive, God would save me. Boaz's jaw clenched so hard something popped. God sent me. That count. She went quiet. One of the babies moved against his chest. A tiny fist pressed into his ribs, then relaxed. Still alive. Still fighting. What are their names? Boaz had to raise his voice over the wind. They don't have names. What? He wouldn't let me name them. He said. Her voice cracked. He said there was no point naming things that wouldn't live. They're living right now. Are they? She tried to turn to see. Are they breathing? Please. They're breathing. Now face forward before you fall off this horse. If they die, they're not going to die. You can't know that. Yes, I can. Boaz pulled her tighter against him. The cold was getting worse. His hands were going numb. The horse stumbled, caught itself, kept moving. You know why? Why? Because 16 years ago my wife gave birth 6 weeks early in weather like this. Little girl. Came out blue just like yours. Midwife said she was already gone. Said there was nothing to be done. The woman went very still. I warmed her against my chest just like this, breathed into her mouth, rubbed her skin until my hands bled, and after an hour, 1 full hour, she cried. Boaz's voice got quieter, harder. Loudest damn sound I ever heard. What happened to her? Fever took her 3 days later. Silence. Just the wind, the creak of leather, the horse's labored breathing. I'm sorry, the woman whispered. Don't be sorry. Point is, you fight until you can't fight anymore. You understand. You don't give up just because someone told you it was hopeless. I'm so tired. I know. I don't think I can. You can. Stay awake. Talk to me. About what? Anything. Where are you from? Ohio. Originally. We came west 2 years ago. Chester, my husband. He wanted land. Wanted to build something. Wanted. Her voice faded. Keep talking. I'm cold. I know. Keep talking anyway. Will you really save them? I'm trying. Why? The question came out small, confused. You don't know us. We're nothing to you. Boaz stared ahead into the white chaos. My cabin's got 1 chair, 1 plate, 1 bed. Had it that way for 16 years because I didn't want anyone else around. You know what that makes me? Lonely. Selfish. He adjusted his grip on her. But maybe not today. The cabin appeared sudden through the trees, 4 walls, a chimney windows dark. Boaz had never been so grateful to see anything in his life. We're here. Hold on. He half fell, half jumped off the horse, dragging the woman with him. She couldn't stand. Couldn't even try. He carried her 1 arm around her back, 1 hand pressed over the baby's, and kicked the door open so hard it slammed against the interior wall. Inside. Now. He laid her on the floor by the hearth. She curled on her side, shaking her frozen nightgown, crackling like paper. The babies, he opened his coat, carefully, terrified of what he'd find. 3 small faces. Still blue. Still too quiet. Come on. Boaz grabbed kindling, struck flint, got flames going in under 30 seconds. Come on, come on. Are they? Building a fire. Don't talk. Wood caught. Flames spread. Heat bloomed into the frozen cabin. Boaz grabbed every blanket he owned, made a nest by the hearth, laid the babies down in the center. The smallest one twitched. There you go. Boaz covered them with his body, breathed warm air over their faces. That's it. Fight. Just like your mama. Fight. Behind him, the woman made a sound, half gasp, half sob. They're moving. They're moving. Boaz didn't look away from the infants. Keep moving. Come on. Breathe. Breathe. The smallest one's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then she cried. Not loud, not strong, but real, alive, furious. Oh, thank God. The woman's voice broke completely. Thank God. Thank God. The other 2. Boaz pressed his ear to their chests. Heartbeats. Faint but steady. They're breathing. All three. You hear me? All three. She was crying now. Silent, exhausted tears running into her hair. Boaz stayed with the babies until their skin went from blue to gray to pink. Until their movements got stronger. Until all three were crying thin, demanding hungry cries that said they intended to live. Only then did he turn to the woman. She was still in that frozen nightgown, still bleeding from her wrists, still shaking so hard he could hear her teeth. This is going to hurt. Boaz grabbed his knife. What? He cut the nightgown off in 3 quick motions. Underneath his hands stopped. Bruises. Everywhere. Old ones yellow-green, new ones purple-black, across her ribs, her shoulders, her thighs. A burn scar on her shoulder blade shaped like an iron. Cuts on her arms that looked like someone had held her down and, "Don't look at me." Her voice went small, ashamed. "Please don't look." Boaz wrapped her in a dry blanket. His hands were shaking again, not from cold this time. "Who did this to you? It doesn't matter. Who? My husband. But I deserved no." The word came out like a gunshot. Boaz grabbed her face, made her look at him. "You didn't deserve this. You didn't deserve any of this. You understand me." She stared at him, those green eyes huge in her thin face. "Say it." "I don't... Say you didn't deserve this." "But I failed him." "Say it." Her mouth trembled. "I didn't..." The words broke. "I didn't deserve this." "Damn right you didn't." Boaz let her go, turned to her wrists. The wire wounds were deep, ragged, still bleeding. He cleaned them with whiskey. She didn't even flinch. Didn't make a sound. "You can scream if you want," he said quietly. "I used up all my screams a long time ago." Boaz wrapped her wrists in clean cloth. Her feet were worse toes, blackened skin splitting. Frostbite. Bad. "This is going to hurt more." He packed her feet in lukewarm water. She sucked in a breath, bit her lip, made no other sound. One of the babies started crying again. The woman's head turned toward the sound like a flower toward sun. Can I hold them? You need to warm up first." "Please." Her voice cracked. "I need to know they're real. I need..." Boaz looked at her, at the desperation in her face, the need. "All right." He brought the smallest baby over the one who'd cried first, the fighter. "Here, careful." The woman took her daughter like she was holding something holy. The baby squirmed, made a small sound, then quieted against her mother's chest. "Hi." The woman's voice went soft, wondering. "Hi, little one. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing to your children." "But I couldn't protect them." "You're alive. They're alive. That's protecting them." Boaz brought over the other 2 babies. "Here, all 3. She cradled them against her chest, her face crumpling. "They need names." "Then name them." I don't know if I'm allowed." "You're their mother. You're allowed." She looked down at the 3 small faces. "June. For the month we were supposed to be happy." She touched the second baby's cheek. "Clara. After my grandmother. She would have fought for me if she'd lived." Then the third, the smallest, the fighter. "Belle. Because she's beautiful. Because they all are. Because..." Her voice broke. "Because I want them to know they're beautiful, even though their father said they weren't." Boaz felt something shift in his chest. Something that had been frozen for 16 years cracking open. "June. Clara. Belle." He went to his workbench, grabbed 3 pieces of cedar he'd been saving for nothing in particular. Started carving. "Good names. Strong names." "What are you doing?" "Making plaques." The knife moved smooth and sure. "Every child deserves to have their name written down. Deserves to know they matter." The woman watched him work, watched the letters appear in the wood, June, Clara, Belle. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Doing what?" "Helping us. You don't know us. We're nothing but trouble. We're..." Your 3 babies and their mama." Boaz didn't look up from his carving. "That's all I need to know." "But my husband." "Your husband's not here. He'll come looking. Let him." The certainty in his voice made her go quiet. Outside, the blizzard howled. Inside, 3 babies slept warm and safe, their names carved in cedar, their mother alive when she shouldn't be. Boaz finished the plaques and set them on the mantel. June, Clara, Belle. 3 names that would change everything. The woman he still didn't know her name had fallen asleep. Her daughters cradled against her chest. Her face had lost that blue tinge. Her breathing had steadied. She'd live. They'd all live. Boaz sat on the floor with his back against the hearth and let himself think about what he'd done. He'd just brought 4 people into his life. 4 people who'd need feeding and clothing and protecting. 4 people who'd break the silence he'd built so carefully. 4 people who'd make him remember what it felt like to care whether someone lived or died. He should have left them, should have ridden past, should have told himself it wasn't his problem. But 16 years ago his daughter had died in his arms, and his wife had followed 3 months later, her heart broken beyond repair. And he'd stood at their graves and made a promise never again. Never care that much. Never let anyone close enough to destroy him when they left. He'd kept that promise for 16 years. And now, in the space of 3 hours, he'd broken it. Stupid. He scrubbed his hands over his face. Goddamn stupid. One of the babies, Belle the little fighter, made a small sound in her sleep. Her tiny fist opened and closed, reaching for something. Boaz looked at that small hand, at the 3 names on the mantel, at the woman who'd apologized for surviving. Well? He spoke to the empty cabin, to the storm, to whatever force had made him hear that cry. Guess we're doing this. Outside, the blizzard raged. Inside, a man who'd thought he was done with second chances stared at 4 people who needed one. And somewhere in the darkness, a husband who'd left his wife to die had no idea what was coming for him. Because Boaz Kittredge was a patient man, a quiet man, a man who'd spent 16 years alone, carving an existence from silence and snow. But he was also a man who remembered every animal he'd had to shoot because cruelty had broken it beyond repair. Every foal born twisted because its mother had been worked to death. Every creature that had come to him bearing scars from human hands. And he was a man who had a very simple rule: you don't hurt things smaller than you. You don't hurt things that can't fight back. And you sure as hell don't tie a woman to a fence in a blizzard and leave her babies to freeze. The woman stirred in her sleep, whispered something that sounded like, "Please." Boaz reached out and adjusted the blanket around her shoulders. "You're safe now." He didn't know if she could hear him. Said it anyway. "Whatever that man did to you, wherever he is, it's done. You hear me? It's done." The fire crackled. The babies slept. And in that small cabin on Crescent Ridge, 4 lives were saved, and 1 man's isolation ended. June, Clara, Belle. 3 names that would echo through everything that came next. 3 names that would change a mountain, a town, and a giant of a man who'd forgotten how to hope. But first, they had to survive the night. Nora woke to the sound of wood splitting. For a moment she didn't know where she was. The ceiling was wrong rough timber instead of whitewashed plaster. The air smelled of pine smoke and something cooking. And she was warm. Actually warm. For the first time in months, maybe years, she wasn't cold. Then, memory crashed back and she sat up so fast her head spun. "The babies!" "Right here," the giant's voice came from somewhere to her left. "All 3. Sleeping." Nora turned. He was sitting by the hearth, his back against the stone, and in his massive arms, he held June, Clara, and Belle. All 3 were wrapped in soft wool, their faces pink and peaceful, their tiny chests rising and falling in perfect rhythm. "You've been holding them all night." Seemed easier than letting them fuss. He shifted carefully, adjusting Belle's blanket. "You needed the sleep more than I did." Nora stared at him. Really looked at him for the first time. He was huge, easily 6.5 feet, shoulders broad enough to fill a doorway, hands that could palm a man's head. His beard was dark and wild, his hair pulled back with a leather cord, and his face was all hard angles and weathered skin. He looked like something carved from the mountain itself. But his hands on her daughter's were gentle, careful, the way you'd hold something precious. "What's your name?" she whispered. "Boaz. Boaz Kittredge." "I'm Nora. Nora Whitlock." "Not anymore, you're not." He said it flat, final. "That man gave up any claim to you when he tied you to that fence." Nora's throat went tight. "It's still my legal name. Laws can change, names can change, you can change." Boaz looked at her directly. "Question is, do you want to—" She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "I don't know what I want anymore." "Fair enough." He stood moving slow and careful, so the babies didn't wake. "But here's what I know. You're alive. Your girls are alive. And right now, that's all that matters." He carried the babies to her, placed them one by one in her arms. They were so warm, so real. Belle made a small sound and nuzzled against her mother's chest, seeking milk that wasn't there yet. "They're going to be hungry soon," Nora said quietly. "I've got goat's milk. Been feeding them through the night with this." Boaz held up a small wooden spoon carved smooth and thin. "Works better than you'd think." Nora looked at the spoon. There was something about it, the way it was worn, the care in the carving. "Did you make this?" "Long time ago." His voice went flat, distant. "For my daughter. The one who—" "Yeah." He took the spoon back, turned away. "I'll heat more milk. You should eat something too." "I'm not hungry." "Wasn't asking if you were hungry. You need to eat." He moved to the stove, his movements efficient despite his size. "Can't feed babies if you're half-starved yourself." Nora watched him work. He moved around the small cabin like he knew every inch of it, every board and nail and stone. This was a man who'd built his world to fit exactly one person, and hadn't planned on changing it. "Why did you save us?" The question came out before she could stop it. Boaz paused, his back still to her. "Told you. Heard you crying." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got." "You could have ridden past. Most people would have." "I'm not most people." He poured milk into a pot, set it on the stove. "And you can stop looking for complicated reasons. Sometimes things are simple. You needed help. I was there. End of story." But it wasn't the end of the story, and they both knew it. June started fussing. Then Clara joined in. Belle, not to be left out, added her voice to the chorus. Within seconds, all three were crying thin, demanding wails that filled the cabin. "They're hungry." Nora tried to shift them, to find a position that might soothe them, but her arms were weak, and her wrists screamed where the wire had cut. I don't have milk yet." "Give them here." Boaz took the babies, settled them against his chest, with practiced ease. "Milk's almost ready. Just hold on, little ones, hold on." And they did. The crying didn't stop, but it quieted like they recognized his voice, trusted it. Nora felt something crack open in her chest. "You're good with them." "Had practice." He tested the milk temperature on his wrist, then grabbed the wooden spoon. "Come here, June. You first." He fed them one by one, patient and methodical. Dipped the spoon, let them suck, waited while they swallowed. June took to it quick. Clara was fussier, kept spitting the milk back out. Belle attacked that spoon like she was afraid it might disappear. "That's it, fighter." Boaz smiled, actually smiled, and the expression transformed his entire face. "Knew you had it in you." When all three were fed and dozing, he brought Nora a bowl of something that smelled like heaven. Venison stew, thick and hot with chunks of potato and wild onion. "Eat." "I can't pay you for this." "Didn't ask you to pay me." "But I should—" "Nora." He said her name firm. "Eat the damn stew." She ate. Every bite. Didn't realize how hungry she was until the food hit her stomach and her body woke up screaming for more. Boaz refilled her bowl without comment. She ate that too. "Thank you," she whispered when she'd finished. You keep thanking me, I'm going to start charging you. He took the bowl, set it aside. Now let me look at those wrists. He unwrapped the bandages carefully. The wounds underneath were ugly deep gouges, where the wire had cut edges ragged and red. But they weren't festering, weren't green. That was something. Going to leave scars, Boaz said quietly. I've got plenty already. His hand stilled. He looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw recognition in his eyes. Understanding. He'd seen the bruises, the burns, all of it. How long? He asked. Does it matter? Yes. Nora pulled her hands back, wrapped her arms around herself. 2 years. Since we came west. Before that, he was different. Or maybe I just didn't see it. I don't know anymore. When did it start? After the first baby. I miscarried at 4 months. He said it was my fault. Said I'd been careless, ungodly. Her voice went flat, reciting facts. The second pregnancy I carried to term, but the baby was stillborn, a boy. He said God was punishing me for something. For some sin I'd committed. He started... She stopped, swallowed. He started trying to beat the sin out of me. Boaz's jaw clenched so hard she could hear his teeth grind. Then I got pregnant with the girls. Triplets. The midwife said it was dangerous, said I might not survive. Chester. The name tasted like ash. Chester said if I died giving him sons, at least I'd have served my purpose. But you had daughters. All 3. The midwife told him as each one was born. No sons, just girls. Nora's hands started shaking. He didn't even look at them, didn't hold them, just stood there and said I'd shamed him. Said I wasn't a real woman, said... Her voice cracked. Said I deserved what happened next. What happened next? He dragged me outside, tied me to the fence, told me if God wanted me alive, God would provide. Then he left. She looked at Boaz. He left me to die, left them to die, his own daughters. Where is he now? I don't know. Town maybe, or the church. He's the preacher's son. Did I mention that everyone thinks he's righteous? Good. A man of God. She laughed, bitter and broken. No one would believe me if I told them. They'd say I was lying, that I drove him to it, that I deserved it for failing to give him sons. Boaz stood, abruptly walked to the window, stared out at the snow-covered ridge for a long moment. You didn't fail anyone, he said finally, and you didn't deserve any of it. You don't know that. Yes, I do. He turned back to her. You want to know how? Nora nodded, not trusting her voice. Because 16 years ago, my wife Adeline gave birth to our daughter early. Real early. She was small, weak. The midwife said she wouldn't make it. He crossed his arms, his face hard. But I didn't accept that. I fought for her. Did everything I could. And for 3 days she lived. 3 days my wife and I had with our girl. What was her name? Sarah. The name came out rough. Sarah May Kittredge. What happened? Fever. Came on fast. Nothing I could do. Nothing anyone could do. He looked away. Adeline blamed herself. Said she'd done something wrong. Said God was punishing her for some sin she couldn't even name. Sound familiar? Nora's throat closed. She died 3 months later. Just gave up. Stopped eating. Stopped sleeping. Stopped wanting to live. Boaz's voice got quieter. I tried everything, begged her to fight, to stay. But she'd decided she was cursed, that she was poison, that everyone she loved would die because of her. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just understand something. He looked at her directly. Grief and guilt will lie to you. They'll tell you you're broken, cursed, wrong. They'll make you believe you deserve pain. But it's a lie, Nora. All of it. You're not cursed. You're not broken. You're just a woman who married the wrong man. Tears started sliding down Nora's face. She couldn't stop them. And those girls, Boaz gestured to the sleeping babies. They're not a punishment. They're not a shame. They're 3 human beings who deserve to live, who deserve a mother who fights for them. You understand? I don't know how to fight anymore. Then I'll teach you. He said it simple, final. Starting now. Over the next 3 days, Boaz taught her. He taught her how to feed the babies with the wooden spoon he'd carved for Sarah, how to warm goat's milk to the right temperature, how to tell which cry meant hungry and which meant tired and which meant something hurts, fix it now. He taught her how to change cloths, diapers, he called them. Though Nora had always heard them called clouts, and how to wash them in the big pot on the stove, how to make a sling from an old sheet so she could carry all 3 babies at once. He taught her where he kept things: the root cellar, the smokehouse, the well that never froze, the barn where the goats lived and the chickens roosted, and his mare, the one he'd been tracking that night, had finally come home on her own. Her name's Dancer, Boaz said, scratching the mare's nose. She's got more sense than I do. Knew enough to come back before the storm killed her. Unlike me. You didn't have a choice. He said it flat. She did. On the 4th morning, Nora woke to find him sitting at his workbench carving. She'd been watching him carve every night small wooden toys pieces for some project she couldn't identify letters and words that appeared like magic from raw cedar. But this was different. What are you making? She asked. Beads. He held up a string of small wooden spheres, each one carved with a single letter. June, Clara, Belle. For the babies. For you. He added another bead. This one was larger, carved with an N. So you remember. No matter what happens next. No matter who comes looking. These are your daughters. They have names. They have worth. And so do you. Nora took the necklace with shaking hands. The wood was smooth, warm, perfect. Each letter carved with such care, it looked like printing. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Boaz went back to his carving. Just wear it, and remember. That afternoon, hoofbeats sounded outside. Nora froze the babies in her arms. Someone's coming. Boaz was already moving, grabbing his rifle from above the door. Stay inside. Don't come out unless I call you. Boaz. Stay inside, Nora. He stepped onto the porch, rifle loose in his hands. Nora pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering. Through the window she could see an old woman on a gray mare wrapped in furs, her face weathered as tree bark. Put that gun down, Boaz Kittredge. The woman's voice was sharp. I'm not here to cause trouble. Hester. Boaz lowered the rifle. What are you doing all the way up here? Looking for a woman. Hester dismounted stiffly. Nora Whitlock. You seen her. Silence. I know she's in there, Boaz. Saw the smoke from her clothes burning in your fire pit. Saw the extra footprints. Saw... She paused. Saw the blood in the snow down by the fence line. Lots of blood. What do you want, Hester? To help you, stubborn fool. The old woman pulled a bundle from her saddlebag. Brought baby clothes, some food, medicine for whatever needs mending. Boaz didn't move. Who else knows about her being here? No one yet, but her husband's in town, Boaz, going around telling everyone his wife went mad after childbirth. Tried to kill the babies and herself. Says he barely stopped her in time. Nora's breath caught. Says she ran off into the storm half-dressed out of her mind with fever and sin. Hester's voice went hard. Says he's getting a judge's order to have her committed, to take those babies somewhere safe. Over my dead body. Might come to that. Hester tied her horse. Chester Whitlock's got friends. Got the church behind him. Got people believing every word out of his lying mouth. And you're just the crazy mountain man who lives alone and talks to ghosts. I don't talk to ghosts. Don't you? Hester looked at him knowingly. Either way, you keep that girl here, you're going to have trouble. Real trouble. Let it come. Boaz. I said, let it come. His voice went cold. That man tied his wife to a fence in a blizzard and left her to die. Left 3 newborn babies to freeze. You think I'm going to hand her back to him because he's got a judge's signature? Hester was quiet for a moment. Then, can I see her? Boaz hesitated, then nodded. Nora, come out here. Nora stepped onto the porch, the babies clutched to her chest. Hester took one look at her, at the bandages on her wrists, at the way she held herself like someone expecting a blow, and her face went hard as stone. "Child." The old woman's voice gentled. "Let me see those wrists." Nora extended her arms. Hester unwrapped the bandages, examined the wounds, then looked at Boaz. "Barbed wire." "Yes, ma'am." "And these bruises? Older." Boaz's jaw clenched. "Weeks old, most of them." Hester wrapped the bandages back carefully. Then she turned to Nora. "Your husband did this?" Nora couldn't speak, could only nod. "And the babies?" "He left them in the snow, said—" Nora's voice cracked. "Said they weren't worth keeping because they were girls." Hester closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were bright with fury. "That goddamn fool." "He's coming for me, isn't he?" Nora whispered. "Yes." "What should I do?" "Fight." Hester said it simple. "You fight, child. You don't let him take you back. You don't let him take these babies. You fight with everything you've got." "I don't know how." "Then you learn." Hester looked at Boaz. "And you teach her. You hear me? You teach this girl how to survive." "Already planning on it." "Good." Hester mounted her horse. "I'll do what I can in town, spread some truth around. But Boaz—" She paused. "Chester's not going to let this go. He's going to come up here with men, with guns, with a judge's order. And when he does, I'll be ready." "You better be." Hester kicked her horse into motion. "Because that girl and those babies, they're depending on you now." She rode off, disappearing into the trees. Nora stood shaking on the porch. "He's coming." "Let him come." "You don't understand. Chester, he's not like other men. He's—" She struggled for words. "He believes he's righteous. That God speaks through him. That anyone who opposes him is opposing God himself. And he'll do anything to prove he's right." Boaz looked at her. "Then I'll do anything to prove he's wrong. You can't fight the whole town. Watch me." "Boaz." "Nora." He put a hand on her shoulder, gentle, steady. "I didn't pull you out of that snow just to give you back to the man who put you there. You understand, you and those girls, you're under my protection now. And I don't give up what's mine. We're not yours. You are now." He said it simple, final. "Soon as I cut those wires, you became mine to protect. That's how it works up here. You don't leave people to die, and you don't let monsters take back what they threw away." Tears started again. Nora couldn't stop them. "Why are you doing this?" "Because 16 years ago, I didn't fight hard enough to keep my wife alive. Didn't see the signs, didn't understand she was drowning until it was too late." His voice went rough. "I won't make that mistake twice." He went inside, leaving Nora on the porch with her babies and her tears, and the terrible knowledge that somewhere in the valley below, her husband was planning his return. That night, Boaz started preparing. He boarded the windows from the inside, thick planks nailed across the glass, leaving only narrow slits to see through. He reinforced the door with iron bars. He brought in extra firewood, extra food, extra ammunition for his rifle. "What are you doing?" Nora asked. "Getting ready." "For what?" "For whatever comes next." He tested the door, making sure the bar held. "When your husband gets here, and he will get here, I want to be ready." "You really think he'll bring men?" "I know he will. Men like that, they don't accept losing. Don't accept being wrong. They'll burn the world down before they admit they made a mistake." Boaz looked at her. "So we prepare. We plan. And we make damn sure he doesn't get what he wants." "And what does he want?" "Control." Boaz said it flat. "He wants you broken. Wants you afraid. Wants you to believe you belong to him." He crossed his arms. "We're going to show him different." "How?" "By you standing up when he arrives. By you looking him in the eye. By you saying no." Boaz knelt down so they were eye level. "Can you do that, Nora, when he comes, when he starts talking about God and duty and all the lies he's told himself? Can you stand up and say no?" Nora looked at her daughters, at June and Clara and Belle, sleeping peaceful and safe in their cedar-carved names. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I can do that. Good. Boaz stood. Then we're ready. But they weren't ready. Not for what came next. Not for the sound of horses 3 days later. Not for the voices loud, confident, righteous. Not for Chester Whitlock's voice cutting through the morning air like a knife. Nora, I know you're in there. Come out right now. Nora's hands started shaking. The baby, sensing her fear, began to cry. Boaz grabbed his rifle. Stay behind me. Boaz. Stay behind me, Nora. No matter what happens, no matter what he says. You stay behind me. He opened the door. Chester Whitlock stood in the yard with 5 men behind him. He was tall, thin, dressed in black like he was heading to church. His face was handsome in a sharp, angular way. His eyes were blue and cold, and absolutely certain. There she is. Chester's voice dripped false concern. Nora, darling, thank God. We've been so worried. Nora said nothing, just pressed herself against Boaz's back. Sir. Chester addressed Boaz now, his tone respectful. I don't know what my wife told you, but she's not well. She had a difficult birth, 3 babies, you understand, and it's affected her mind. The doctor says it's not uncommon. Hysteria, delusions. She needs help, professional help. She needs to be away from you. Boaz's voice was flat, dangerous. Chester's smile didn't waver. I understand you wanting to help. It's admirable, but Nora is my wife. Those are my children, and I have a legal right. You tied her to a fence in a blizzard. Silence. You tied her to a fence with barbed wire, took her newborn daughters, and left all 4 of them to freeze to death. Boaz's voice got quieter, more dangerous. That's not hysteria. That's attempted murder. That's a lie. Chester's mask cracked just slightly. She's confused. Delusional. She doesn't know what she's saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. Nora stepped out from behind Boaz. Her voice shook, but she kept going. You beat me for 2 years, burned me, starved me, and when I gave you daughters instead of sons, you decided I deserved to die. You're sick, Nora. I'm not sick. She held up her wrists, showing the wire wounds. You did this. You tied me up and walked away. You said if God wanted me alive, God would save me. And he did. Chester spread his hands. He sent this good man to find you, to bring you back to your family? You're not my family. The words came out strong, clear. You're my abuser, and I'm not coming back. Chester's face went cold. You don't have a choice. Yes, she does. Boaz raised the rifle, not pointing it, not yet, but the threat was clear. She's choosing to stay here, with me, and those babies, they're staying too. You can't keep another man's wife. I can if that man tried to kill her. Boaz's finger moved to the trigger. Now get off my land. One of Chester's men, a thick-necked farmer, stepped forward. You threatening a man of God? I'm threatening a man who hurts women and babies. Don't give a damn if he calls himself God himself. We have a judge's order. Don't care. The farmer pulled a pistol. Put down the rifle. Boaz smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. You know what the difference is between you and me? What? I actually know how to use this thing. The farmer hesitated. The other men shifted nervously. Chester's face went red with rage. This isn't over, he hissed. Yes, it is. Boaz's voice went flat, final. You made your choice when you left them to die. Now live with it. She's my wife. She's her own person, and she says no. Boaz cocked the rifle. Last chance. Get off my land. For a long moment, nobody moved. The tension stretched tight enough to snap. Then hoofbeats sounded, multiple riders coming fast. Sheriff Thomas Wade rode into the clearing, Hester right behind him, followed by 3 deputies. Stand down! The sheriff's voice cracked like a whip. Everybody stand down right now. Sheriff? Chester's voice smoothed instantly. Thank God you're here. This man is holding my wife against her will. Shut up, Chester. The sheriff dismounted, his face hard. I've been hearing some interesting stories about you. Stories? What stories? About a woman tied to a fence. About 3 babies left in the snow. About a man who walked away and didn't come back. The sheriff looked at Nora. "Mrs. Whitlock, is that true?" Nora's voice came out small but steady. "Yes, sir." "Show me your wrists." She did. The sheriff examined the wounds, his face getting harder with each second. "Barbed wire." "Yes, sir." "And Chester did this?" "Yes, sir." The sheriff turned to Chester. "You got anything to say?" "She's lying." "I found her," Boaz interrupted. 4 days ago, tied to the fence line about 3 miles south of here. Wire cut into her wrists down to bone. 3 babies in the snow beside her, half frozen. She wasn't lying about anything. The sheriff looked at Chester. "That true? I was trying to teach her a lesson. By leaving her to die. She needed to understand that you're a monster." The sheriff shook his head. "Chester Whitlock, you're under arrest for attempted murder." "You can't." "I can and I am." The sheriff gestured to his deputies. "Take him." Chester fought. Actually fought, thrashing and screaming about God and righteousness and his rights as a husband. The deputies had to wrestle him to the ground, and even then, he kept screaming, "You'll burn for this, Nora. You hear me? You'll burn, you and those bastard daughters." Boaz moved. Fast. He was across the yard before anyone could stop him. One massive hand wrapped around Chester's throat, lifting him half off the ground. "You say one more word about those babies." Boaz's voice was soft, deadly. "One more word, and sheriff or no sheriff, I'll snap your neck like kindling." "Boaz." The sheriff's voice was calm. "Put him down." "Give me one reason." "Because that woman and those babies need you more than they need you hanged for murder." Boaz held Chester for another moment, then dropped him. Chester collapsed, gasping and crying. "Get him out of here," the sheriff said quietly, "before I let Boaz finish what he started." The deputies dragged Chester away. His men followed suddenly, wanting no part of this. Within minutes, the yard was empty, except for Boaz, Nora, the sheriff, and Hester. "Mrs. Whitlock." The sheriff's voice gentled. "You're safe now. I promise." Nora couldn't speak, could only nod. "You'll need to come to town, give a statement. There'll be a trial." "No." Boaz stepped between them. "She's not going anywhere near that town. Not until she's ready. Not until she's strong enough." "Boaz." "I'll bring her when she's ready, not before." He looked at Nora. "You want to go now?" She shook her head. Hard. "Then she stays." Boaz crossed his arms. "Trial can wait. Justice can wait. Right now, she needs to heal." The sheriff looked like he wanted to argue. Then he saw Nora's face, white, shaking, terrified, and sighed. "All right. But Boaz, you're responsible for her. You understand. Anything happens, it's on you." "Already was." The sheriff nodded, then rode off. Hester stayed behind. "That was stupid," she told Boaz. "Which part? Threatening to kill a man in front of the sheriff." "Worth it." Hester looked at Nora. "You all right, child?" "I don't know." Nora's voice came out shaky. "I don't know what I am anymore." "You're alive. You're free. That's enough for today." Hester touched her shoulder. The rest, you figure out tomorrow." She rode off too, leaving Boaz and Nora alone in the yard. Nora's legs gave out, just gave out. She sat down hard in the snow, still holding the babies, and started shaking so bad she couldn't stop. Boaz knelt beside her. "You're safe now." "Am I?" She looked at him. "He's going to get out. Men like that, they always get out. And when he does, I'll be ready. You can't protect me forever. Watch me." He pulled her to her feet, steadied her when she swayed. "You stood up to him, Nora. You looked him in the eye and said no. You know how brave that was." "I don't feel brave." "That's what brave is, being terrified and doing it anyway." He guided her back toward the cabin. "Now come inside, get warm, feed those babies, and let yourself breathe for the first time in 2 years." That night, Nora sat by the fire with her daughters and cried. Not sad tears, not scared tears. Something else. Something that felt almost like relief. Boaz sat across from her carving. Always carving. The beads he'd made JUNECLARABELLEN lay on the table between them. What happens now? Nora asked. Now you heal. He didn't look up from his work. You get strong. You figure out who you are without him. I don't know who that is. Then we find out together. He held up what he'd been carving, a small wooden bird wings spread like it was about to take flight. You know what this is? A bird. Freedom. He set it on the mantel next to the name plaques. That's what happens now, Nora. You learn to fly again. Learning to fly turned out to be harder than Nora expected. The first week after Chester's arrest, she couldn't sleep. Every sound made her jump. Every creak of the cabin, every gust of wind, every time Boaz moved too fast, her body braced for impact. For the blow that had to be coming. Because blows always came. You're safe, Boaz kept saying. He's in jail. He can't touch you. But Nora's body didn't believe him. Her body remembered 2 years of fists and fury. Her body knew that safety was temporary, that peace was a lie, that any moment the world could explode into violence. On the 8th night, she woke screaming. Boaz was there in seconds, rifle in hand, scanning for threats. What? What is it? He was here. Nora clutched the babies to her chest, her whole body shaking. He was standing over me. He said he was taking them. He said I didn't deserve them. It was a dream. Boaz set the rifle down, his voice gentle. Just a dream, Nora. It felt real. I know. He sat on the floor beside her makeshift bed he'd given her. His room was sleeping on the floor by the hearth. But it wasn't. He's locked up. Sheriff's got him in a cell with 2 deputies watching round the clock. He's not going anywhere. Until the trial. Until the trial, Boaz agreed. And then they'll hang him or lock him up forever. Either way, he's done hurting you. Nora wanted to believe him, wanted to let herself relax into that promise. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Chester's face, heard his voice, felt his hands. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't. I'm broken. He broke me. You're not broken. Boaz's voice was firm. You're healing. There's a difference. How would you know? Because I've been broken. He looked at the fire, his face shadowed. After Adeline died, I stopped living, stopped talking to people, stopped caring about anything except making it through one more day. Spent 16 years up here telling myself I was fine, I was strong, I didn't need anyone. He paused. That's not strength. That's hiding. And what's the difference? Strength is still being afraid but doing the hard thing anyway. Strength is waking up every morning even when you don't want to. Strength is... He gestured to the babies. Strength is feeding those girls and changing them and loving them even when you're so damn tired you can't see straight. That's not strength. That's just survival. Same thing. Boaz stood, moved to the stove. You want some tea? Hester brought herbs, said they help with sleep. I don't want to sleep. I don't want to dream. Then we'll sit up. Talk. He poured hot water over crushed leaves. Tell me about before. Before Chester. Who were you? Nora hadn't thought about that girl in so long she'd almost forgotten she existed. I was nobody. Farmer's daughter. Helped with the harvest. Took care of my younger brothers. Nothing special. What did you want to be? Want to be? The question confused her. Women don't get to want things. Sure they do. Boaz brought her the tea. What did you dream about when you were young before life got complicated? What did you dream? She thought back, way back, to a girl of 16 standing in a wheat field, watching storm clouds roll across an endless sky. I wanted to see things, go places. I wanted... She laughed bitter. I wanted to matter, to be more than just someone's wife or someone's mother. I wanted to be... She stopped. That sounds stupid. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. Women are supposed to want husbands, homes, children. That's what makes us good. That's what makes us... What makes you good is being kind, being brave, being strong enough to survive. Boaz sat across from her. The rest, that's just what other people tell you to want, so you'll stay small, stay manageable, stay quiet. You sound like a radical. Maybe I am. He smiled slightly. Or maybe I just spent too much time alone thinking about what actually matters. And here's what I figured out. It's not what other people expect from you. It's what you expect from yourself. I don't even know what I expect anymore. Then we figure it out. He said it simple, like it was easy. One day at a time, one choice at a time, starting with right now. Do you want to go back to sleep, or do you want to stay up and talk? Talk. The word came fast. Too fast. Please, I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. Then talk to me. Boaz settled back. Tell me about your brothers. You said you had brothers. So she did. Talked about James and Thomas and little David, who was only 8 when she'd married Chester and moved west. Talked about her mother, who died when Nora was 12, about her father, who'd worked himself into an early grave trying to keep the farm going. Talked about the girl she'd been quiet, obedient, always trying to be good enough, never quite succeeding. Chester noticed me at church, she said. I was 17. He was 24. Preacher's son, educated, handsome. Everyone said I was lucky. That a man like that, a godly man, a good man, wanted someone like me. She stared at her tea. I believed them. I thought if I could just be good enough, be perfect enough, he'd love me. Really love me. And when did you realize he didn't? After the first time he hit me. She said it flat. Matter of fact. We'd been married 3 months. I burned the roast. He said I was careless, wasteful. He said his mother never burned anything. He said I needed to learn. She touched her cheek, remembering. He apologized after. Brought me flowers. Said he was sorry, said it would never happen again. And I believed him. But it did happen again. Every time I failed. Every time I disappointed him. Every time I wasn't... Her voice cracked. Wasn't the wife he thought he deserved. Boaz was quiet for a long moment. Then, my father used to beat my mother. Nora looked up surprised. Not often. Maybe once a month. Always when he'd been drinking. Always when something went wrong. Crop failed. Cow died, neighbor said. Something he didn't like. Boaz's jaw clenched. And every time she'd make excuses. Say she provoked him. Say he didn't mean it. Say he was a good man, having a hard time. What happened? She died when I was 14, fell down the stairs, broke her neck. He looked at Nora directly. Everyone said it was an accident. I know better. Did your father... I don't know. Maybe he pushed her. Maybe she was running from him and missed a step. Maybe she was so tired of being scared that she just let go. He took a breath. But here's what I learned. Good men don't hit women. Don't matter if they're drunk or angry or disappointed. Don't matter if the woman burned dinner or talked back or failed to give them sons. Good men don't hurt the people they're supposed to protect. Chester said I made him do it. Said if I was better. Chester's a liar. Boaz said it flat. And you believing his lies doesn't make them true. Nora felt something shift in her chest. Some weight she'd been carrying for 2 years, getting just slightly lighter. How do I stop believing them? Practice. He stood, moved to his workbench. Every time your brain tells you you deserved it, you say no, out loud. You say I didn't deserve it. I'm not broken. I'm not worthless. You say it until your brain starts to believe it. That sounds like magic. It's not magic, it's work. He picked up a piece of wood, started carving. Same way I taught myself to stop hearing Adeline crying in the night. Same way I taught myself that being alone wasn't the same as being safe. Takes time, takes effort, takes saying the truth over and over until it sticks. And if it doesn't stick, then you keep saying it anyway. He looked at her over the wood. You think I woke up one day and decided to be fine? Hell no. I woke up every day for 16 years, and chose to keep breathing. That's all you're doing, Nora. Choosing to keep breathing. Choosing to keep fighting. Choosing to believe you deserve better even when every voice in your head says you don't. Belle started fussing. Then June. Then Clara joined in, all three, working themselves into a proper cry. They're hungry again. Nora moved to get up, winced as her wrists protested. They were healing, but slowly. Still hurt like hell every time she moved wrong. I'll get the milk. Boaz was already moving. You settle them. Over the next few minutes, they worked together, Boaz warming milk, Nora soothing babies, passing them back and forth with the practiced ease of people who'd been doing this for weeks instead of days. It felt almost normal, almost like a family. That thought scared Nora more than anything else. Boaz. She kept her eyes on June's face as the baby sucked milk from the wooden spoon. What happens when Chester gets out? He's not getting out. But what if he does? What if the judge? What if people believe him instead of me? What if? Then we deal with it. He said it calm. But Nora, listen to me. You're thinking about all the terrible things that might happen instead of dealing with what's happening right now. And right now, you're safe. The girls are safe. Chester's locked up, and the sheriff knows the truth. That's enough for today. But tomorrow we worry about tomorrow. Tonight we're here. We're safe. We're together. He touched her shoulder, brief and gentle. Stop borrowing trouble from the future. Nora tried, really tried. But the fear lived in her bones now, and bones were hard to change. 2 weeks after Chester's arrest, Hester rode up with news. Trial set for next month, she announced, stepping into the cabin without knocking. Judge Harper presiding. He's fair mostly. Doesn't care much for wife-beaters. Mostly fair. Nora's stomach clenched. What does that mean? Means he follows the law. And the law says a man's got rights over his wife and children. Hester set down a basket of supplies. But it also says attempted murder's attempted murder regardless of who you're trying to kill. Will I have to testify? Yes. Hester's voice was firm. You'll have to stand up in front of God and everybody and tell them what he did. Every detail, every bruise, every broken bone, I can't. Nora backed away. I can't stand up there, and everyone will be looking at me, judging me, thinking I deserved it. They won't. Yes, they will. Her voice rose. You know they will. They'll say I provoked him, that I failed as a wife, that I... Nora. Boaz's voice cut through her panic. Look at me. She did. His face was steady, calm. You're going to testify. You're going to tell the truth, and you're not going to apologize for surviving. He said each word clear, distinct. You understand? I'm scared. I know. That's why I'm coming with you. You can't. I can and I will. He crossed his arms. You think I'm letting you walk into that courtroom alone after everything not happening? Boaz, if people see us together, if they think... Nora struggled for words. I'm still legally married. If they think you and I are that, we're... I don't give a damn what they think. His voice went hard. You need support. I'm giving it. End of discussion. Hester watched this exchange with sharp eyes. You two are playing a dangerous game. What game? Boaz turned to her. The one where a married woman lives alone with a single man and everyone pretends not to notice. Hester raised an eyebrow. People are already talking, Boaz. Saying Nora ran straight from one man's bed to another. Saying those babies might not even be Chester's. Saying lies. Boaz's jaw clenched. And I don't care. Well, you should care. Because if the judge thinks Nora's morally compromised, if he thinks she left Chester for you. She didn't leave Chester. Chester tried to kill her. And you think that matters to people? Hester's voice turned sharp. You think facts matter when there's good gossip to spread? Wake up, Boaz. This woman's reputation is being dragged through the mud right now. And you living with her, taking care of her, playing house with her babies, you're making it worse. Silence fell over the cabin. Nora felt her face burning. I should leave. No. Boaz said it flat. I'm causing you trouble. I don't care. But your reputation? I live alone on a mountain. I don't have a reputation. He looked at Hester. Is there a legal problem? Can the judge use this against her? Hester hesitated. Maybe. If Chester's lawyer's smart, he'll argue that Nora was having an affair, that she tried to kill herself and the babies because she couldn't handle the guilt. That you're the real father and, those babies are 3 weeks old. Boaz's voice went cold. I met Nora 3 weeks ago when I pulled her half-frozen body off a fence. Anyone with eyes can see the timeline doesn't work. Logic doesn't always matter in court, Hester sighed. But you're right, the timing's clear. Still, you need to be careful, both of you. No inappropriate behavior. No, she waved her hand. No appearing like you're anything other than a good Samaritan helping a woman in need. That's all I am, Boaz said. But when he said it, he didn't look at Hester. He looked at Nora. And something in his eyes made her chest tight. After Hester left, Nora couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. About gossip and reputations, and how the world saw women who didn't follow the rules. I'm ruining your life, she said that evening as they fed the babies. You're not. I am. People are talking, saying terrible things. And you've lived here peacefully for 16 years. Now everyone's going to think, I don't care what they think. You should. Nora looked at him. You saved my life. You've been nothing but kind. And now people are going to say, we're Say it. Having relations. Her face burned. People are going to say we're having relations and that I'm a whore who left her husband for you. Boaz set down the milk. His face was carefully blank. And that bothers you? Of course it bothers me. Her voice cracked. It's not true. You've been completely proper. You gave me your bed. You sleep on the floor. You've never even touched me except to help with medical things. And now people are going to think, Nora. He interrupted her. Do you trust me? What? Do you trust me, yes or no? Yes. She said it without hesitation. Of course I trust you. Then trust me when I say this. I don't care what people think. I don't care what they say. I care that you and those girls are safe. That's it. That's all that matters. He picked up Belle, who'd started fussing. The rest, the gossip, the judgment, the people whispering behind their hands, they can all go to hell. But your life? My life was empty before you got here. He said it simple, honest. I was alone. Not by choice, by cowardice. Because I was too scared to care about anyone again. Too scared to let anyone matter. He looked at her directly. You showing up, you and these girls, you reminded me what it feels like to have a purpose. To have people who need me. And I'm not giving that up because some small-minded fools want to gossip. Nora's throat closed. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just... He paused. Just stop thinking you're a burden. Stop thinking you're ruining my life. You're not. You're making it better. That night, Nora lay awake thinking about his words. About purpose and need and what it meant to matter to someone. Chester had made her feel small, worthless, like she was a problem to be solved, a disappointment to be corrected. Boaz made her feel... She didn't have words for it yet, but it was something like hope. The trial loomed closer. Sheriff Wade came by twice to take statements to document Nora's injuries to build his case. Each time, Nora had to relive that night, the cold, the pain, the certainty that she was going to die. You're doing good, the sheriff said after the second interview. Real good. The judge is going to see those scars and know Chester's lying. What if he doesn't? Nora's hands shook. What if people believe Chester instead? Then we appeal. We fight. We don't give up. Sheriff Wade put his hat back on. Mrs. Whitlock, I've seen a lot of bad men in my time. Chester's one of the worst. Not because he's violent, plenty of men are violent, but because he thinks he's righteous, thinks God's on his side. Those are the dangerous ones. He paused. But here's what I know. The truth has a weight to it. And lies, even pretty lies, eventually collapse under their own rot. After he left, Boaz found Nora sitting on the porch, staring at nothing. "You all right?" "No." She didn't see the point in lying. "I'm terrified. I'm exhausted, and Her voice broke. "I keep thinking about what happens if I lose. If the judge gives the girls back to Chester. If he won't. You don't know that." "I do know that." Boaz sat beside her. "Because even if the law fails you, and it might laws fail women all the damn time, I won't. You understand, if that judge says those babies go back to Chester, I'll take you all so far into these mountains no one will ever find you." Nora stared at him. "You'd do that? Risk everything?" "Already have." He looked at the horizon. "Already chose you over everything else the moment I cut those wires. Already decided I'd rather be an outlaw protecting you than a good citizen who let you die." "Why?" The question tore out of her. "Why do you care so much I'm nothing to you? Just some broken woman who stumbled into your life." "You're not broken." His voice went hard. "And you're not nothing. You're—" He stopped, struggled for words. "You're someone who fought to survive when the world told you to give up. Someone who loves her daughters fierce, even though their father said they weren't worth keeping. Someone who's brave enough to tell the truth, even when it's easier to lie." He looked at her. "That's not nothing, Nora. That's everything." She couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, could only stare at this giant of a man who somehow saw value in her when she couldn't see it herself. "I don't deserve you," she whispered. "Probably not." He smiled slightly. "But you're stuck with me anyway." A week before the trial, June got sick. It started small, a cough, a slight fever. Slight. But by the next morning she was burning up, crying inconsolably. Her tiny body racked with coughing fits that scared Nora half to death. "What's wrong with her?" Nora held June against her chest, trying to soothe her. "What do I do?" Boaz touched June's forehead. His face went grim. "Fever's too high. We need to cool her down." They spent the next 12 hours in a fog of terror. Boaz brought cold water from the well, and they sponged June's body, trying to bring the fever down. Nora held her and rocked her and sang every lullaby she could remember. Nothing helped. The fever kept rising. "She's going to die." Nora's voice was hollow. "She's going to die, and it's my fault. I should have kept her warmer. I should have—" "Stop." Boaz took June carefully. "This isn't your fault. Babies get sick. It's not—" His voice cracked. "It's not anyone's fault." But Nora saw his face, saw the terror there, the memory. "Your daughter," she whispered. "Sarah. She had a fever." Boaz nodded, didn't speak, and she died. 3 days after it started. His arms tightened around June. "I tried everything, and it wasn't enough. Then what do? We keep trying." He looked at her. "We don't give up, not on her, not on any of them." They didn't sleep, just took turns holding June, cooling her skin, trying to get water down her throat. Clara and Belle seemed to sense something was wrong. They were quieter than usual, watching their sister with wide, solemn eyes. Around midnight, June stopped crying. Nora's heart stopped. "No, no, no, no. She's breathing." Boaz pressed his ear to June's chest. "Still breathing. I think the fever broke." He was right. Over the next hour, June's skin cooled. Her breathing steadied. She fell into a deep, exhausted sleep that looked almost peaceful. Nora collapsed against the wall, shaking with relief. "Thank God, thank God." "Yeah." Boaz set June carefully in her basket. "Yeah." They sat in silence for a long time, both too wrung out to speak. Finally, Nora said quietly, "You were thinking about Sarah." "All night." His voice was rough. "Kept thinking not again. Please God, not again." "But it wasn't again." Nora reached out, touched his hand. Brief, gentle. "She's alive. She fought and she won. This time." Boaz stared at June's sleeping face. "But there'll be other times, other fevers, other dangers, and someday, he stopped. Someday, I won't be able to save them. No one can save everyone. Nora's voice was soft. But you can try. And you can love them while they're here. That's all anyone can do. He looked at her. Really looked at her. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just... She smiled sadly. I'm just tired of being afraid of everything. Tired of waiting for the next terrible thing. Maybe it's time to just live. While we can. Yeah. Boaz's hand turned, his fingers tangling briefly with hers. Maybe it is. They stayed like that for a moment, hands touching exhaustion, making them honest, before Nora pulled away, suddenly aware of the intimacy. Of what Hester had said about appearances. I should sleep, while they're all sleeping. Yeah, good idea. Boaz stood quickly. Too quickly. I'll keep watch. Make sure June stays stable. You need sleep too. I'm fine. He moved to the window, putting distance between them. Go on, rest. Nora went to bed, but she didn't sleep. Instead, she lay awake thinking about the way his hand had felt in hers. The way he'd said her name. The way he looked at her daughters, like they were precious. Like they mattered. Like she mattered. And that thought, that dangerous, terrifying thought, scared her more than Chester ever had. Because Chester had hurt her body. But Boaz was starting to heal her heart. And healed hearts were vulnerable. Healed hearts could be broken again. And Nora didn't know if she could survive another breaking. The morning of the trial came cold and gray, the kind of morning that made everything feel heavier than it was. Nora dressed in the only decent dress she owned, dark blue calico that Hester had brought, simple and modest. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't manage the buttons. Boaz had to help his large fingers, surprisingly deft, his face carefully neutral as he worked. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. We can still leave. Take the girls and go. I know places in these mountains where no one would ever find us. And live like fugitives, always running, always looking over our shoulders. Nora shook her head. That's not living, Boaz. That's just a different kind of prison. Better than what might happen in that courtroom. Maybe. She touched the wooden beads around her neck. JUNECLARABELLEN. But I need to do this. I need to stand up and tell the truth. Not for the judge or the town or even for justice. For me. So I can look at my daughters someday and tell them their mother wasn't a coward. Boaz's jaw tightened. You've never been a coward. Then I need to prove it. To myself. She took a breath. Are the girls ready? Hester's watching them. Said she'd bring them if the judge asks to see them. Otherwise they stay at her place. He grabbed his coat. You sure about this? No. Nora tried to smile. Failed. But I'm doing it anyway. The ride to town was silent. Boaz kept his horse close to hers, a steady presence that should have been comforting, but somehow made everything feel more real, more final. By the time they reached Crescent Ridge's main street, Nora's stomach was in knots. People stared, whispered behind their hands, pointed. A few women turned away deliberately, skirts swishing with judgment. One man spat in the dirt as they passed. Ignore them, Boaz said low, eyes forward. You're not doing anything wrong. But it felt wrong. Felt like every eye was stripping her bare, seeing all her failures, all her shame, all the ways she'd failed to be good enough. The courthouse was packed, every bench full, people standing along the walls, more crowding the doorway. Nora's breath caught when she saw Chester sitting at the defendant's table, dressed in his Sunday best, his face calm and righteous. He looked like a martyr, like someone wrongly accused. He looked like the man she'd married before she'd learned what lived underneath. I can't do this. Nora stopped in the aisle. I can't, everyone's looking at me. Let them look. Boaz's hand pressed against her lower back, firm and steadying. You're stronger than their stares. Come on. Sheriff Wade had saved them seats near the front. As Nora sat, Chester turned and looked directly at her. His eyes were cold, empty. Then he smiled small and knowing, and mouthed two words, "You're mine." Nora's blood turned to ice. "Don't look at him," Boaz said. "Don't give him the satisfaction." But she couldn't look away. Couldn't stop seeing that smile, that certainty, that absolute conviction that he'd already won. "All rise." The bailiff's voice cut through her panic. "The Honorable Judge Marcus Harper presiding." Judge Harper was an older man, gray-haired and stern, with eyes that missed nothing. He took his seat, surveyed the courtroom, then nodded to the prosecutor. "The Territory calls this court to order in the matter of Territory versus Chester Whitlock. Mr. Whitlock stands accused of attempted murder of his wife Nora Whitlock and their 3 infant daughters." The prosecutor, a thin man named Davidson, stood. "Your Honor, the Territory will prove that on the night of January 14th, 1879, Mr. Whitlock deliberately bound his wife to a fence with barbed wire, removed her newborn children from her care, and left all 4 to die of exposure during a blizzard." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Chester's lawyer, a well-dressed man from Denver named Harrison, stood smoothly. "Your Honor, the defense will prove that Mrs. Whitlock, suffering from severe hysteria following a difficult childbirth, became a danger to herself and her children. Mr. Whitlock, acting out of love and desperation, attempted to restrain her until help could arrive. Any injuries Mrs. Whitlock sustained were the result of her own violent struggling, not deliberate cruelty." "Liar!" The word escaped Nora before she could stop it. The judge's eyes fixed on her. "Mrs. Whitlock, you'll have your chance to speak. Until then, silence in my courtroom." "Yes, Your Honor." Her voice came out small, ashamed. The prosecution began. Sheriff Wade testified first, describing the scene where Boaz had found Nora, the fence line, the wire, the blood, the 3 babies nearly frozen. He showed photographs that made several women in the gallery gasp, showed the wire itself stiff with dried blood. "And in your professional opinion, Sheriff, could these injuries have been self-inflicted?" "No, sir." Wade's voice was firm. "The wire was tied from behind, knotted tight, and the wounds they're consistent with someone being bound and left, not with someone struggling." Harrison cross-examined. "Sheriff, isn't it true that Mrs. Whitlock was found in the care of Mr. Boaz Kittredge, an unmarried man?" "Yes." "And isn't it true that she's been living alone with Mr. Kittredge for nearly 2 months? She's been recovering from near death. Just answer the question. Has she been living alone with a man who is not her husband?" Wade's jaw clenched. "Yes." "And did you ever consider that Mrs. Whitlock might have had reasons for wanting to leave her husband? Reasons that had nothing to do with abuse?" Objection. Davidson shot to his feet. "Counsel is implying facts, not in evidence." Sustained. The judge looked at Harrison. "Make your point or move on, counselor." "No further questions." Harrison sat looking satisfied. Boaz's hand found Nora's under the bench. Squeezed once. A silent message. "Stay strong." Dr. Marsh testified next, describing the medical examination he'd conducted 3 days after Nora's rescue. The wire wounds, the bruises in various stages of healing, the burn scar, the evidence of repeated physical trauma over an extended period. "In your medical opinion, doctor, are these injuries consistent with a pattern of abuse?" "Yes, absolutely." Marsh's voice was firm. "I've been a physician for 30 years. I've seen accidents. I've seen self-inflicted wounds. And I've seen abuse. This is abuse, no question." Harrison stood for cross-examination. "Doctor, you examined Mrs. Whitlock 3 days after the alleged incident. Isn't it possible some of these injuries were sustained during that time? Perhaps during her stay with Mr. Kittredge?" "No. The bruising patterns show—" "Isn't it possible, doctor, that a woman suffering from hysteria might injure herself, might even fabricate stories of abuse to justify abandoning her husband? I've seen no evidence of hysteria." "But you're not a specialist in female disorders, are you, doctor?" Marsh's face reddened. "No, but—" No further questions. It went on like that for hours. Witness after witness. Evidence piled on evidence. But Harrison kept finding ways to twist things to plant doubt, to suggest that maybe, just maybe, Nora was lying. Finally, the judge looked at Nora. "Mrs. Whitlock, you may take the stand." This was it, the moment she'd been dreading. Nora stood on legs that shook, walked to the witness stand feeling every eye in the room on her, placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. The whole truth, nothing but the truth. The truth. As if truth had ever protected her before. Davidson approached gently. "Mrs. Whitlock, please tell the court what happened on the night of January 14th. Nora took a breath, started talking. Described going into labor alone because Chester had ridden to town. Described delivering 3 babies with only a neighbor woman to help. Described Chester's face when he learned they were all daughters. "What did he say?" Davidson asked. "He said I'd shamed him, failed him. He said," her voice cracked, "he said God was punishing him through me, that I wasn't a real woman, that I'd given him nothing but worthless girls. And then what happened? He dragged me outside. I was weak from the birth, bleeding, couldn't fight. He tied me to the fence with wire, took the babies and laid them in the snow. Then he—" She stopped, swallowed. "Then he walked away." "Did he say anything before he left?" "He said if God wanted me alive, God would provide. If God wanted the babies alive, God would save them. He said—" Tears started falling. "He said if we died, it was God's will, and he'd accept it as his judgment." The courtroom was silent. Even the people who'd been whispering had stopped. "How long were you out there, Mrs. Whitlock?" "I don't know. Hours. It felt like forever. The cold, I couldn't feel my hands anymore. The babies stopped crying. I thought—" Her voice broke completely. "I thought we were all going to die. I thought my daughters would freeze to death before they ever had a chance to live." "But someone found you." "Boaz. Mr. Kittredge. He was tracking his horse through the storm and he heard the babies crying. He cut me free. Saved us." Nora looked at Boaz sitting in the gallery. "He saved all of us." Davidson nodded. "Mrs. Whitlock, can you show the court your wrists?" Nora extended her arms. The scars were stark against her pale skin, deep, ugly, impossible to ignore. "And can you tell us about the other injuries Dr. Marsh documented?" So she did. Told them about the beatings, the burns, the broken ribs, the nights Chester had locked her in the cellar for hours, days, until she apologized for whatever she'd done wrong. The way he'd controlled every aspect of her life, what she ate, what she wore, who she talked to when she slept. "And did you ever try to leave?" "Where would I go?" Nora's voice was hollow. "I had no money, no family nearby, and Chester, he made it clear that if I tried to leave, he'd find me. He'd bring me back, and it would be worse." "Did you believe him?" "Yes." She looked at the judge. "I believed him because he'd never lied about hurting me before. He always kept those promises." Davidson sat down. Harrison stood. This was the part Nora had been dreading. "Mrs. Whitlock, you testified that you were alone when you went into labor. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And the neighbor woman who helped, what was her name?" "Sarah Jenkins." "And where is Mrs. Jenkins now?" Nora's stomach dropped. "I don't know." "You don't know. How convenient." Harrison paced. "Mrs. Whitlock, isn't it true that you've been living alone with Mr. Kittredge for nearly 2 months?" "I've been recovering. Just answer the question. Have you been living alone with a man who is not your husband?" "Yes, but—" "And isn't it true that Mr. Kittredge is a large man, physically imposing?" "I don't see. Could Mr. Kittredge have inflicted these injuries, these wire wounds, these bruises?" "No." Nora's voice went hard. "Boaz would never. But he could have. Physically, he could have tied you up, hurt you, then staged a rescue to make himself look heroic. That's not what happened. Or perhaps—" Harrison's voice turned oily. "Perhaps you and Mr. Kittredge had an arrangement. Perhaps you wanted to leave your husband, wanted to be with Mr. Kittredge instead, and you concocted this story to justify abandoning your marriage vows." "No." Nora was shaking now. "That's not, I didn't." "Then explain to the court why you would choose to stay with a strange man rather than return to your lawful husband." Because my husband tried to kill me. The words came out loud, clear. Because he beat me for 2 years. Because he tied me to a fence and left me to die. Because I would rather die than go back to him. Even if it means living in sin with another man. I'm not living in sin. You're an unmarried woman living alone with an unmarried man. What would you call it? I'd call it survival. Nora stood, her hands gripping the rail. I'd call it choosing life over death. I'd call it protecting my daughters from a man who called them worthless. And if that makes me a sinner in your eyes, counselor, then I'll burn in hell gladly, rather than let Chester Whitlock touch my children again. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel. Harrison smiled like he'd just won. No further questions, Your Honor. Nora stumbled back to her seat. Boaz caught her arm, steadied her. You did good, he whispered. I lost my temper. You told the truth. That's all you could do. But Nora wasn't sure truth was enough. Not when lies were prettier. Not when the truth made her look wild and desperate and wrong. Chester took the stand next. He was perfect. Calm, sorrowful. He described Nora's difficult pregnancy, her mood swings, her increasing irrationality. He described the night of the birth, how she'd refused to let him help, how she'd screamed and cursed, how after the babies were born, she'd looked at them with such hatred he'd feared for their lives. I tried to calm her, Chester said, his voice breaking. Tried to help. But she was like someone possessed. She kept saying the babies were demons, that God was punishing her, that she needed to send them back to hell before they destroyed her. Liar. Nora whispered it, but several people nearby heard, turned to stare. So what did you do, Mr. Whitlock? I tried to take the babies somewhere safe, but Nora, she fought me, scratched me, bit me. She was so strong even after giving birth. It took everything I had to get the babies away from her. Chester wiped his eyes. And when I finally got them secured, I turned around and she was gone. Ran out into the storm in nothing but her nightgown. I searched for hours. Hours. But I couldn't find her. Why didn't you report her missing immediately? I was ashamed. Chester's voice dropped. My wife had gone mad. My children were in danger. I didn't want people to know. Didn't want them to think I'd failed as a husband. And when you learned Mr. Kittredge had found her, I was relieved, grateful, until I learned she'd been telling lies about me, turning people against me, using her condition, her hysteria to destroy my reputation. Chester looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, my wife is sick. She needs help, medical help, and our daughters need a father who can protect them. I'm begging you, please return my family to me. Let me care for them. Let me prove I'm a good husband, a good father. He was so convincing, so sincere. Looking at him, you'd never know he was lying. Davidson cross-examined, but Chester had an answer for everything. An excuse, an explanation. He was slippery as oil and twice as hard to pin down. When he finally stepped down, Nora felt sick. He's going to win, she whispered to Boaz. The judge believes him. I can see it. Trial's not over yet. But it felt over. Felt like the ending had been written before it even started. Then Davidson called his final witness. The territory calls Sarah Jenkins. A murmur went through the courtroom. Chester's face went pale. An older woman stood from the back row. She was small, gray-haired, dressed in simple homespun. She walked to the stand with her head high. Mrs. Jenkins, you were present at the birth of Nora Whitlock's children. Is that correct? Yes, sir. I was the only one there besides Nora. And can you describe what happened that night? Sarah Jenkins took a breath. Then she told them how Chester had stayed away deliberately, how he'd said he didn't want to watch his wife give birth to more disappointments. Told them how after the babies were born, she'd gone to fetch him, and he'd looked at those 3 little girls with such hatred it had made her blood run cold. He said they weren't worth the effort of raising. Said if Nora had been a real woman, she'd have given him sons. Then Sarah's voice hardened. Then he grabbed Nora by her hair and dragged her outside. I tried to stop him, tried to reason with him. He shoved me so hard I fell. By the time I got back up, he'd tied her to that fence and was walking away. What did you do? I ran for help. Ran to my husband, told him to fetch the sheriff. But the storm, it was too bad. No one could get through until morning. And by then, her voice cracked. By then, I thought they'd all be dead. Thought I'd failed that poor girl. Why didn't you come forward sooner? I was scared. Sarah looked at Chester. Chester Whitlock is the preacher's son, got powerful friends, and I'm nobody. Who'd believe me over him? What changed your mind? I saw Nora in town, saw her scars, saw her holding those babies like they were precious. And I thought, what kind of woman am I if I let a man like that get away with what he did? What kind of person does that make me? She straightened. So I'm here, and I'm telling the truth. Chester Whitlock tried to murder his wife and babies, and if this court lets him get away with it, then justice is just another word for whatever powerful men want it to mean. The courtroom exploded. The judge banged his gavel repeatedly, calling for order. Chester was on his feet, shouting that Sarah was lying, that she was confused, that she was old and senile and couldn't be trusted. Harrison tried to cross-examine, but Sarah Jenkins was unshakable. She answered every question with calm certainty, never wavered, never contradicted herself. When she finally stepped down, she walked past Nora's seat and squeezed her shoulder. "You're braver than you know, girl," she whispered. "Don't let them tell you different." The judge called a recess. Everyone filed out into the cold afternoon air. Nora couldn't feel her legs, couldn't feel anything except the terrible weight of waiting. "What happens now?" she asked Boaz. "Now the judge decides." He kept his arm around her, not caring who saw. "Now we wait." They didn't have to wait long. 30 minutes later, everyone was called back. The judge took his seat, his face grave. "I've heard the testimony, reviewed the evidence, and I've reached a decision." He looked at Chester. "Mr. Whitlock, stand." Chester stood, his face confident. He thought he'd won. Nora could see it in his eyes. "Mr. Chester Whitlock, I find you guilty of attempted murder of your wife and 3 infant children. I sentence you to 20 years hard labor at the territorial prison." The courtroom erupted. Chester started shouting, screaming about injustice, about God's will, about how they'd all burn for this. It took 3 deputies to drag him out. The judge banged his gavel. "Furthermore, I hereby grant Nora Whitlock a divorce on the grounds of extreme cruelty and attempted murder. Custody of June Clara and Belle Whitlock is awarded solely to their mother. Mr. Chester Whitlock is barred from any contact with his former wife and children for the remainder of his natural life." Nora couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't believe what she'd just heard. "Did he—" Her voice came out broken. "Did he just say, 'You're free'?" Boaz's voice was rough with emotion. "You're free, Nora. Free. He can't touch you anymore." Then she was crying, sobbing. 23 years of fear and pain and shame, pouring out in great heaving gasps. Boaz pulled her against his chest, and she clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world gone liquid. "It's over." He kept saying it, his hand on her hair. "It's over. You're safe. You're free. It's over." People were staring, whispering, judging. Nora didn't care. Let them stare. Let them whisper. She was free. Sheriff Wade appeared beside them. "Mrs. Whitlock, or I suppose it's just Miss Whitlock, now I need you to sign some papers. Make it official." Nora nodded, wiping her face. Her hands were still shaking, but when she picked up the pen and signed her name, the signature was clear. Strong. Nora Whitlock. Not Chester's wife anymore. Just Nora. Outside the courthouse, Hester was waiting with the 3 babies. When she saw Nora's face, she smiled. "You did it, girl. We did it." Nora took her daughters, held them close. "All of us." The ride back to the mountain was quiet, peaceful. The sun was setting, painting the snow gold and pink. Nora held the babies close and let herself feel it. The relief, the exhaustion, the strange lightness of not being afraid anymore. "What happens now?" she asked as Boaz's cabin came into view. "Now?" He looked at her. "Now you decide. You're free, Nora, Free to go wherever you want. Be whoever you want. The world's open to you. What if... She stopped, started again. What if I want to stay here with you? Boaz's hands tightened on the reins. You sure about that? No. She laughed, shaky and honest. I'm not sure about anything. But I know I feel safe here. The girls are safe here. And you? She looked at him. You make me feel like maybe I'm worth something. Like maybe I'm more than just what happened to me. You've always been more than that. I'm starting to believe it. She touched the wooden beads around her neck. So if you'll have us, if you don't mind 4 more mouths to feed, and a woman who wakes up screaming sometimes, and 3 babies who cry at all hours. I'd be honored. Boaz's voice was rough. I'd be hell, Nora. You and these girls are the best thing that's happened to me in 16 years. Of course I want you to stay. Even with all the gossip, all the trouble. Especially with the trouble. He smiled. Turns out I like having a purpose again. Like having people who need me. Like... He paused. Like not being alone anymore. Me too. Nora smiled back. Me too. They rode the rest of the way in comfortable silence. And when they finally reached the cabin, when Boaz helped her down, and she stood with her daughters in her arms, looking at this small, sturdy home that had saved her life. Nora felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real hope. The kind that maybe, just maybe, meant happy endings were possible after all. Hope, Nora learned, was harder to live with than fear. Fear was familiar. Fear told you what to expect, how to move, when to duck. Fear was a companion that whispered constant warnings. Don't trust this. Don't hope for that. Don't believe it when things feel good, because good things never last. Hope was different. Hope made you vulnerable. Made you imagine futures that might never come. Made you want things you'd spent years teaching yourself not to want. And Nora wanted. God help her, she wanted. The first few weeks after the trial passed in a strange blur. Nora kept waiting for something terrible to happen, for Chester to escape, for the judge to change his mind, for someone to take her daughters away. But nothing happened. Days turned into weeks. Winter started loosening its grip. And slowly, impossibly, Nora began to believe she might actually be safe. The girls were growing. June had recovered completely from her fever, and was the loudest of the 3, always demanding attention with lusty cries that could wake the dead. Clara was quieter, more watchful, her dark eyes following everything with solemn curiosity. And Belle was still the fighter, always squirming, always reaching for more, never satisfied with just existing when she could be exploring. They're going to be handfuls when they're older, Boaz said one morning, watching Belle grab his finger and try to pull it into her mouth. Strong-willed, all 3 of them. Good. Nora was kneading bread dough, her hands finally strong enough for the work. I want them strong. Want them to know they can fight for what they need. They'll know. Boaz looked at her. They've got you for a mother. That's all the lesson they need. Nora's hands stilled. I don't know how to be a good mother. Chester always said. She stopped, shook her head. I'm still letting him into my head, still hearing his voice. That'll take time to fade? How much time? However long it takes. Boaz stood, moved to the stove. You want some coffee? I want to stop feeling like I'm waiting for the world to end. He poured 2 cups, brought one to her. That feeling that's not going away tomorrow, or next week, or even next month. But someday you'll wake up and realize you forgot to be afraid, that you went a whole hour, maybe a whole day without checking the door, or listening for footsteps, or bracing for impact. He touched her shoulder, brief and gentle. That's when you know you're healing. Has that happened for you with Adeline? Boaz was quiet for a long moment. Some days, not all, but more now than before. What changed? He looked at her, really looked at her. You did. You and those girls, you reminded me what it feels like to care about tomorrow, to have reasons to keep going instead of just existing. Nora's throat closed. Boaz. I'm not asking for anything. He said it quick. I know you're not ready, Hell, I don't know if I'm ready, but I need you to know you being here, it matters. To me. You matter. I matter. Nora said the words, slow testing them. I'm not used to mattering. Get used to it. He smiled slightly. Because you're stuck with me now, and I don't let go of things that matter. Something warm unfurled in Nora's chest. Something that felt dangerously close to happiness. That afternoon, Hester rode up with news and a wagon full of supplies. Town's still talking about the trial, she announced, setting down a basket of eggs. Half the people think you're a saint for surviving. Other half think you're a whore for living up here with Boaz. Let them think what they want. Nora was feeding Clara, watching the baby's face scrunch with concentration. I'm done caring about other people's opinions. Good. That's the spirit. Hester pulled out a package wrapped in brown paper. Brought you something. From the women in town, the ones who aren't idiots. Inside was fabric. Soft cotton in blues and yellows and greens. Enough to make dresses for the girls, maybe a new dress for Nora too. They wanted you to know. Hester's voice went soft. They wanted you to know you're not alone. That what happened to you, it's happened to others. Maybe not as bad, but bad enough. And seeing you stand up, seeing you fight it, gave them hope. Made them think maybe they could fight too. Nora's vision blurred. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just keep living. Keep showing those girls that women can be strong. That we don't have to accept whatever men decide we deserve. Hester squeezed her hand. You're doing important work here, girl. Even if it doesn't feel like it. After Hester left, Nora stood on the porch, holding the fabric and crying. Not sad tears. Something else. Something that felt like being seen. Like mattering to people she'd never even met. You all right? Boaz came out wiping his hands on a rag. Nora laughed through her tears. I'm better than all right. I think I'm happy. Is that allowed? Am I allowed to be happy? Why wouldn't you be? Because a month ago I was tied to a fence waiting to die. Because my husband's in prison. Because I'm divorced and living with a man I'm not married to and people think I'm... She stopped. Because happiness feels like something I'm not supposed to have. That's Chester talking. Boaz's voice was firm. Not you. You're allowed to be happy, Nora. You're allowed to laugh and smile and enjoy your life. You're allowed to want things. To hope for things. He paused. You're allowed to live. I'm still learning how. Then I'll teach you. He said it simple. Like it was easy. We'll figure it out together. Spring came slowly to Crescent Ridge, but it came. Snow melted. Green things started pushing through the earth. And Nora found herself changing too, growing stronger, standing straighter, speaking louder. The woman who'd whispered apologies for existing was slowly becoming someone else. Someone braver. The girls were 4 months old when June said her first word. Not Mama, like Nora had hoped, but Pa, looking right at Boaz while he carved at his workbench. Did she just... Boaz froze his knife mid-stroke. Did she just call me Pa? June said it again clearer this time, then laughed like she'd told the world's best joke. Boaz's face did something complicated. Happy and sad and overwhelmed all at once. She thinks I'm her father. You are her father. Nora said it before she could second-guess herself. In every way that matters. You're the one who saved her, who feeds her, who gets up in the night when she cries, who carves toys for her and her sisters. She moved closer. Chester gave them life. But you're teaching them how to live. Nora. His voice was rough. You can't just people will think. Let them think. She touched his arm. The girls need a father. And you need to let yourself be loved again. By them. By... She stopped. Couldn't quite finish that sentence yet, but Boaz heard it anyway. Heard what she couldn't say. I need time, he said quietly. We both do. To figure out what this is. What it could be. I know. Nora pulled back. I'm not asking for I don't expect. But someday. He looked at her directly. Someday when you're ready. When we're both ready. Maybe we could. Maybe. She smiled. Someday. It was enough. For now, it was enough. The girls turned 6 months old, then 7, then 8. They were sitting up now, babbling constantly, reaching for everything. Belle had figured out how to roll across the floor and was making Nora chase her constantly. Clara had discovered the joy of throwing things and watching them fall. June was trying to pull herself up on furniture, determined to walk before her sisters. "They're going to be running before we know it," Boaz said one evening, watching Belle zoom across the cabin floor like a tiny, determined caterpillar. "Going to need a bigger place soon. More room for them to grow." "Are you saying this cabin's too small?" Nora was mending one of his shirts, her stitches neat, and even now that her hands had fully healed. "I'm saying—" He paused. "I'm saying maybe it's time to build something bigger. Something that fits all of us. Something that feels less like a hermit's hideout and more like a home." "Yeah." He smiled. "A home." They started planning. Spent evenings sketching rough designs on scraps of paper, arguing good-naturedly about where the kitchen should go, how many bedrooms they'd need, whether the porch should face east or west. It was the most fun Nora had ever had. Planning something, building something, creating a future instead of just surviving the present. "I want the girls to have their own room," she said. "A real room with windows and enough space for all of them. They should have their own rooms. 3 rooms. 1 for each." Boaz was drawing his large hands surprisingly delicate with the pencil. "They're individuals. They deserve individual space. That's a lot of rooms. So we build a lot of rooms." He looked at her. "Nora, I'm not poor. I've been saving money for 16 years with nothing to spend it on. Let me spend it on this. On you and the girls. On building something that matters. You really want this. Want us. More than I've wanted anything in a very long time." He set down the pencil. "But I need to know, do you want this? Want to stay here permanently? Or are you just staying until you figure out what comes next?" Nora thought about it. Really thought about it. Thought about the woman she'd been when she arrived, broken, terrified, certain she had no future. Thought about the woman she was becoming, stronger, braver, learning to believe she deserved good things. "I want to stay," she said finally. "Not because I'm scared to leave. Not because I don't have options. But because this is where I want to be. With you. Building a life. Raising my girls. Being—" She struggled for the word. "Being happy. Then we build." Boaz's smile was wide and genuine. "We build something big enough for all of us. Something strong enough to last." They broke ground in late spring. Boaz hired men from town to help with the heavy work. Some of them were the same men who'd whispered about Nora, who'd judged her, who'd believed Chester's lies. But they needed work, and Boaz paid well, so they came. Nora watched them, sometimes these men who'd thought her worthless, now working to build her home. There was something satisfying about it, something that felt like justice. "You're smiling," Boaz said, coming to stand beside her. "What's funny?" "Just thinking about how life works sometimes, how the people who judged me are now building my house." She looked at him. "Think they've learned anything?" "Probably not. Most people don't." He handed her a piece of wood. "But some do, and that's enough." The house went up quickly. By midsummer, the frame was standing. By fall, walls were up and the roof was on. By the time the girls turned 1 year old, the house was finished, bigger than anything Nora had imagined, with wide windows and smooth wooden floors and 5 bedrooms, plus a huge kitchen and a porch that wrapped around 3 sides. "It's too much," Nora kept saying. "It's too big. It's too—" "It's exactly right." Boaz carried June through the empty rooms, the baby giggling and reaching for everything. "It's got room for the girls to grow. Room for you to breathe. Room for—" He stopped. Room for what? Room for whatever comes next. He looked at her. Room for more life. More people. More everything. Nora understood what he wasn't saying. Room for more children. Room for a real family. Room for them to become something more than just whatever they were now. "Boaz." She set down Clara, who immediately crawled toward her sister. I need to tell you something. All right. I'm scared. The words came fast. I'm scared of wanting this too much. Scared of letting myself love you and then something happening. You leaving, you dying, you realizing I'm not worth all this trouble. Nora. Let me finish. She took a breath. But I'm more scared of not trying. Of living my whole life afraid to want things because wanting leads to losing. And I don't want to live like that anymore. I don't want my daughters to grow up thinking love is something to be afraid of. Boaz crossed the room, took her hands. I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen. Can't promise I won't die someday, or that life won't throw terrible things at us. But I can promise I'll be here as long as I'm breathing. That I'll fight for you and those girls with everything I have. That I'll never make you feel small or worthless, or like you're anything less than extraordinary. He paused. And I can promise that I love you. Have loved you since hell, since probably the first week. When you stood up to Chester in the yard, even though you were terrified. When you chose to fight instead of giving up. You love me. The words came out broken, wondering. I love you. He said it firm, clear. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you sing to those babies. I love how you've survived things that would break most people. I love... He stopped, smiled. I love everything about you, Nora. And if you'll have me, if you're willing to risk it, I'd like to marry you. Make this official. Make us a real family. Nora couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at this man who'd saved her life and then taught her how to live it. Yes. The word came out as a whisper, then louder. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Boaz pulled her close, kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally carefully her lips. It was nothing like Chester's kisses, those had been demands taking what he wanted. This was different. This was a question and an answer all at once. This was choosing and being chosen. This was love. They married in October, 1 year after Nora had nearly died in the snow. Hester stood up with Nora. Sheriff Wade stood with Boaz. The girls were there too. Of course, June and Clara and Belle, all wearing dresses Nora had made from that fabric the women had given her, all giggling and grabbing at everything with their chubby hands. The ceremony was simple, quick, just the judge and a few witnesses. But when Boaz slipped a ring onto Nora's finger, carved from the same cedar he'd used for the girls' name plaques, she felt something shift in her chest, something that felt like coming home. You're mine now, Boaz said quietly. Legally mine. And I'm yours. No one can change that. I was always yours. Nora touched his face. From the moment you said, come with me, I've been yours. They had a small celebration at the house. Hester brought food. A few neighbors came, the ones who'd believed Nora, who'd testified or supported her. Sarah Jenkins was there holding Belle and crying happy tears. Sheriff Wade made a toast about justice and second chances and the importance of choosing right over easy. To Boaz and Nora, he said, raising his glass. Two people who proved that sometimes the world does reward the brave. Everyone drank. Everyone cheered. And Nora stood in her new house with her new husband and her 3 daughters and let herself feel it, the happiness, the safety, the absolute certainty that this was real. This was hers. And no one could take it away. That night, after everyone had gone and the girls were asleep in their new room, Nora and Boaz sat on the porch and watched the stars. You happy? Boaz asked, terrified. Nora laughed. But yes, happy too. Is that normal, being scared and happy at the same time? I think that's what love is. He pulled her close. Being brave enough to be happy even though you know it could hurt. Choosing hope over fear. Choosing life over survival. When did you get so wise? When a half-frozen woman and 3 babies showed up and reminded me what matters. He kissed her hair. You saved me too, you know. I was dying up here alone, just too stubborn to lie down. Then we saved each other. Yeah. His arms tightened around her. Yeah, we did. The years passed. The girls grew. June was the leader, bold and loud and always charging ahead. Clara was the thinker, quiet and careful and seeing everything. Belle was the heart, fierce and loving, and never backing down from a fight. "They're perfect," Nora said one evening watching them play. They were 4 years old now, running through the house like small whirlwinds, leaving chaos in their wake. "They're terrors," Boaz corrected. But he was smiling. Yesterday, June tried to climb onto the roof. Clara figured out how to pick the lock on the pantry. And Belle punched a boy in town for saying girls can't do math. "That's my girl," Nora grinned. "Did you punish her?" "Hell no. I bought her candy." He paused. "Don't tell anyone I said that. Your secret's safe with me." More children came. A son they named Samuel, born 2 years after the wedding. Then twin boys Thomas and David, named after Nora's brothers. The house that had seemed too big suddenly felt perfectly sized, filled with noise and laughter and life. People in town stopped whispering eventually, stopped judging. The Kittredge family became just normal, just another family. Boaz was respected for his carpentry, his honesty, his quiet strength. Nora was known for her kindness, her resilience, her willingness to help other women who found themselves in situations like hers. "You've become a leader," Hester said one day. "Women come to you, ask your advice, trust your judgment." I'm just telling them what I learned. That they're worth fighting for, that they deserve better." And that's exactly what they need to hear. Hester smiled. "You're doing good work, girl. Important work." Chester died in prison after 8 years. Nora received the news with nothing but relief. No sadness. No regret. Just relief that he was gone. That he could never hurt anyone again. "How do you feel?" Boaz asked that night. "Free." Nora looked at their sleeping children. "Completely free. He was the last shadow hanging over us. And now he's just gone." "And you're still here." "I'm still here," she smiled. "We're all still here, living, thriving, being happy. Despite everything. Because of everything," Nora corrected. "We're strong because we had to be. We're grateful because we know how close we came to losing this. We're happy because we chose to be." The girls grew into women. June became a school teacher, fierce and passionate about education. Clara became a doctor, one of the first women in the territory to earn a medical degree. Belle became a lawyer, fighting for women's rights and children's protections. "I raised revolutionaries," Nora said, watching Belle argue a case in court, defending a woman accused of abandoning her abusive husband. "You raised fighters," Boaz corrected. "You showed them what strength looks like. They're just following your example." "Our example." Nora took his hand. They were older now. Gray hairlines around their eyes, bodies that moved slower than they used to. But they were still them. Still together. "We did this together." "Yeah." Boaz smiled. "Yeah, we did." Years later, Nora stood on the porch of their house, the house Boaz had built, that had sheltered their family, that had witnessed so much life, and watched her grandchildren play in the yard. June's children, Clara's children, Belle's children, all of them loud and wild and free. "They're beautiful," Boaz said, coming to stand beside her. He moved slower now, his body worn by years of hard work, but his eyes were still bright, still sharp. "They're ours." Nora leaned against him. "Our legacy. Proof that we survived, that we built something that matters." "You built something that matters." He kissed her forehead. I just gave you a place to do it." "You gave me everything." Nora turned to face him. "You gave me my life back, my dignity, my freedom. You gave me love when I thought I'd never deserve it. You gave me daughters who grew into warriors, sons who learned what real strength looks like. You gave me—" Her voice cracked. "You gave me everything, Boaz. Everything. You gave me the same." His arms wrapped around her. "Gave me a reason to live instead of just exist. Gave me a family. Gave me purpose. Gave me—" gave me you." They stood like that for a long time, watching the children play, feeling the weight of their years and the lightness of their love. "Do you ever think about that night?" Nora asked. "The blizzard, the fence, how close we came to every day." Boaz's voice was quiet. "Every single day, I think about how I almost rode past, almost missed you. And then, I think about everything that came after the trial, the house, the children, all of it. And I think sometimes the worst moments lead to the best lives." "Not despite the worst moments," Nora said softly. "Because of them. Because they teach us what matters, what's worth fighting for. And what's worth fighting for? This." She gestured to everything: the house, the children, the life they'd built. Love, family, freedom. The chance to choose who we become, instead of letting others define us. "That's what you taught me." Boaz pulled her closer. "That's what you taught everyone." Nora watched her granddaughters chase each other across the yard. Watched them laugh and shout and exist without fear. Watched them be exactly who they wanted to be. "A woman's worth is not measured by the sons she bears," she said quietly, remembering words from long ago. "But by the strength it takes to keep living when the world has turned against her. And by the life she builds after," Boaz added. "By the love she gives. By the people she saves just by refusing to give up." "Is that what I did? Save people?" "You saved me." He said it simple. "True. You and those girls, you walked into my life half frozen and broken, and you saved me from a slow death of loneliness and regret. You reminded me what it means to hope, to love, to believe in second chances." "Then we saved each other." Nora smiled. "We chose each other, and we chose to live. Every single day. Every single day." The sun was setting now, painting everything gold and crimson. Their grandchildren were being called inside for supper. Life was happening all around them, messy and loud and absolutely perfect. Nora Kittredge. Not Whitlock anymore. Never Whitlock again. Always and forever. Kittredge stood on her porch with her husband's arms around her and knew with absolute certainty that she'd done something remarkable. She'd survived. She'd healed. She'd built a life worth living and raised children who knew they deserved the world. And it had all started with 3 words whispered in a blizzard: "Come with me." 3 words that had changed everything. 3 words that had meant rescue and safety, and the promise that she didn't have to face the darkness alone. 3 words that had led to this, to love, to family, to a legacy of strength that would echo through generations. Come with me. She had. And in doing so, she'd found not just survival, but life itself, rich and full, and more beautiful than she'd ever imagined possible.